All right, this is called I Wish the Challenger Had Been a Failure to Launch. She would be remembered as an embarrassment instead of a tragedy. She would have become a disappointment, not a catastrophe. She would be a dud instead of a boom. She would be a jolt of cringe instead of a cold lake of grief. She would be writing this poem instead of shockwaving into ghosthood after her explosion in the sky. She would be a poet and not a gravestone. She would be a someday and not a never. I wish the Challenger had been a failure to launch, had become junkyard instead of supernova, had become a pile of dismantled components instead of a wreckage collection. I wish the Challenger had received enough assistance to take itself apart and identify what went wrong in its initial manufacture. I wish she had the chance to reconfigure herself into something that works, something with a mission, something built to last. I wish the Challenger had been granted a softer deadline, something kinder than a curtain call. I wish the Challenger had fallen apart sometime before her launch date so NASA could have gone back to the drawing board, instead of sending out divers to gather her far-flung and burnt-out debris. She would be forgotten by most, in favor of whichever new shuttle launched successfully afterwards, but NASA could find a team of scientists to reforge and rewire the unguided missile of her into a rocket safely fueled, its course correctly calculated to escape the crush of gravity. They'd know they needed to repair the damage accrued from the harsh environmental conditions of her construction zone. They would not think to light a fire under her platform and just leave her to wing the rest. They could seal her rocket boosters with O-rings designed to weather record low temperatures without becoming brittle. Even if she could never break orbit, she could still be retrofitted into an airplane. Even if there's a major malfunction somewhere inside, I could see it in her frame. The Challenger is still made to fly, to speed through the void, whether it be blue or black, empty air or empty space. She could still soar herself through multiple odysseys into a singular legend. She could still dive in the direction of destinies. I bet you she can cross the Atlantic. I bet you she can make it around the world in somewhere between 80 days and 40 hours without a care for whomever's keeping count. I bet you she could go the distance. I bet you she could make it to Mars and back. I bet you she'd be the first spacecraft to trace the lines of Orion's belt. I bet you the Challenger will one small step all of humanity into an interstellar species. I bet you she'll make first contact. I bet you she'll have best in-flight meals in the entire Laniakea supercluster. I bet you Andromedans will book tickets for her, several decades of cryosleep in advance, so they could enjoy unlimited refills of her patented Boba Milky Way Galaxy tea while cruising along the rings of Saturn. I bet you her accomplishments will spur unscrupulous spaceship rights to manufacture imposter Challenger shuttles, so they can sell fraudulent voyages with an inferior imitation of her signature in-flight beverage to swindle planetary backwater bumpkins who can't tell a black hole from a protoplanetary nebula. But then all of those they've tried to exploit will begin demanding refunds. Once they've seen the real deal blast past their viewing ports like a comet out of hell, I bet you, she'll leave all of them fakes behind in a parsec-sized cloud of her stardust. Thank you.